Biden's open border his own trial. The Supreme Court will hear arguments in a case over whether enforcement of the law can be selective. No. No. Absolutely not. This benefits the left that uses criminals as proxy government agents to create chaos, to create turmoil, that justifies gun-grabbing policies, that justifies more centralized control on behalf of the government. Absolutely not. It justifies libtard, retards, put into power by people like George Soros, justifies them selectively not prosecuting people for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. They can just choose not to. That's bad. That's bad policy. You should not be able to selectively enforce the law. That's total complete, utter bullshit. That needs to go. I thought that you people on the left were all about equality. What about equal application of the law? You do the crime, you do the time, doesn't matter what your color is. Oh, but, we have the presuppositional belief, the presuppositional argument that black people are being unfairly arrested and thrown in jail. So, prosecutors need to be given discretion in regards to who they do not prosecute. Because it's not fair, the system's not fair. I would agree. It's not fair because you can selectively prosecute or not prosecute. Just apply the law evenly. Just apply the law evenly. Of course, the left would argue that you can't do that because the system has to date historically been unfair. Well, why would it change then? If you have selective prosecution. I mean, if the system is so unfair, why do you have prosecutorial discretion? It wouldn't matter. If the system is so unfair and stacked against black people, it wouldn't matter that they have discretion. Then they can discreetly decide to selectively prosecute that black person if the system is against them. How is selective prosecution or prosecutorial discretion going to stop so-called systematic racism? I mean, if the system is already stacked against black people, why would those in the system say, we're not going to prosecute them? Why? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, before I get into this story, I'd like to ask those of you out there that like and appreciate my content to go check out my BitChute channel, bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. That's bitchute.com /The Realist Philosopher. That's where all my content eventually ends up. There's more than 1,500 pieces there to date. So if you want to get red-pilled, if you want to learn about philosophy, practical philosophy, how the world actually works, and be entertained at the same time, you need to go check it out. That's The Realist Philosopher at BitChute. So bitchute.com /The Realist Philosopher. So Biden's open border's own trial. So the Supreme Court heard oral arguments Tuesday in the United States versus Texas, in which the Biden administration's policy of selective immigration enforcement has come into question. This is good. By the way, I don't know why this hasn't happened before. Oh, I know, because there's, in the past, been far too many rhinos in power, and now some actual MAGA Republicans got into positions of influence, so some individual states are actually suing the federal government for cause, I might add, because the federal government isn't doing their due diligence by enforcing border law, which then affects these individual states negatively. So, of course, they actually absolutely positively have standing to sue Biden, because they can show real-world damages to him not enforcing the law, which raises the question as to whether or not Biden should have the ability to selectively choose which laws he should enforce. I say abso-fucking-lutely not. What a stupid fucking idea. Let's give the president and prosecutors the power, the ability to select who they do and don't prosecute in regards to people that have broken the law. Yeah, that's idiotic. What kind of legal system is that? The legal battle began in September 2021 after Homeland Security Director Alejandro Mayorkas, already that name tells me he should be fired. Alejandro! Oh, yeah, he's not biased, no. Released a memorandum stating that the federal government would prioritize illegal immigration cases based on whether individual detainees pose a public threat. They're here illegally. Since when are laws only enforced if the person's a danger or represents a danger? By the way, you don't know if that person's a danger or not. they're willing to enter the country illegally, what other laws are they willing to break? You don't actually know if this person is a threat to public safety. You're presupposing that they're not a threat because they don't have any criminal background that you know of. Well, a lot of these people come into the country without papers. How do you know if they pose a threat to public safety or not? You don't. Why would your automatic assumption be that they don't? Again, they've already broken the law. By the way, well, what is this special pleading argument bullshit? Well, we don't know that they're violent or a physical threat to anybody, so we can ignore the law. Where is that? Where is that in the law? I'm not aware of that law. Well, this person doesn't seem like a threat, so the law doesn't apply to them. What? Very interesting. What privilege? I love it. That's great privilege. I wish I had that kind of privilege. Okay, well, I'm not a threat to anybody, so I can go out and rob and steal, and, hey, as long as I don't threaten anybody, I'm okay. Well, what happens when the people who own a store, own a bodega, own a business try to stop me from robbing them? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, attack them and, get violent? Oh, well, then they'll be arrested, right? Yeah, not me, though. I can go free. No, that's not the case. I'm white, so, I got privilege, so I don't get that kind of preferential treatment. Oh, where's my white privilege, yo? I'm not allowed to run around and break the fucking law and get special pleading arguments applied ad infinitum that let me off the fucking hook for my bad actions. But these brown people, they come from a poor place, so as long as they're not a threat, they can break the law all they want. It's interesting logic. We do not have the resources to apprehend and seek the removal of every one of these non-citizens. Well, you could put the ones out that you already have in fucking custody instead of, letting them loose into the interior of the country. I love these idiots, this double standards, for all their bullshit talk about how, DeSantis, he used these people as political play toys and shills for his agenda by sending 50 of them to Martha's Vineyard. Meanwhile, this motherfucker and Biden are shipping hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens to red states. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Because it's not in their backyard. These NIMBYists. Not my backyard. As long as it's not my backyard, I'm okay with it. Yeah. Of course, the backyards that these people do get shipped to are poor to middle working class Americans. They don't donate Republican, if at all. So, yeah. Nobody gives a fuck about them. And they're in red areas anyway. So, it serves the agenda of the Democrats to ship these people to Texas and other Republican strongholds. Mayorkas wrote at the time, therefore, we need to exercise our discretion and determine whom to prioritize for immigration enforcement action. Yeah. Moreover, he said the majority of undocumented non-citizens who could be subject to removal have been contributing members of our communities. What the fuck does that mean? What do you mean contributing members of our communities? Do you mean breaking more laws? Can you explain to me how they're able to be contributing members of our communities when they don't have a tax ID number, when they don't have a social security card? Oh, they steal other people's identities, or they buy other people's identities. So not only are they entering the country illegally, breaking the law, but they're also working here illegally, and they're getting forged papers, and they're stealing a job from an American. Well, readers for us, they're not stealing a job from an American. They're just doing a job that Americans wouldn't want to do. And why do these jobs exist that Americans wouldn't want to do? Meaning the jobs don't pay enough, because illegal aliens are willing to do it, and there's enough of a supply of these illegal aliens to create cottage industries just for illegal aliens. And of course, because they're for illegal aliens, these jobs pay crappy. Meanwhile, if you didn't have this pool of illegal aliens to draw from who were able to easily get fake papers, you'd have to pay good wages, and then Americans would do those jobs. So those people who would be contributing members of a community would actually be working legally because you'd be employing actual Americans. And by the way, how much are these people contributing to their fucking communities? Last year, they sent like $160 billion of American money, of U.S. dollars, out of the country in the form of remittances to their home countries. So they're not contributing all that much. Oh, they're paying taxes, realist. So would an American if he got this job, which he would be able to get, which would be able to actually pay a living fucking wage if you didn't have these wetbacks. Oh, excuse me, these illegal aliens stealing those jobs. Oh, I love the justification. They're paying taxes even though they're working illegally. That's interesting. That's an interesting justification. For years, because you allowed them to. I love this. First, the Democrats create the very problem that they're now choosing not to solve. Well, we let them come in here, and we make it easy for them to get, jobs, even though they're not allowed to work here. We make it easy for them to get fake Social Security numbers, and we don't have E-Verify, so, they're able to work for years illegally. But now, because we've made it so easy for them to work here for years illegally, we're going to use those years of illegal work and contribution to justify keeping them here. That's interesting. Oh, yeah, the fact that they're here illegally should not be the basis of an enforcement action against them. What? So you're saying that the fact that they're breaking the law should not be the basis for enforcing the law? It's interesting how we don't see that for anything else, like murder and rape and shit. Oh, the fact that they're persons of murderers should not alone be the basis for enforcing laws against murder on these people. Interesting. Talk about rolling out a welcome mat. Yeah. Texas and Louisiana filed suit on grounds that the federal immigration policy requires detention and deportation hearings for all illegal immigrants convicted of felonies in the U.S. Yep. The states also know that Biden's immigration policy places an undue burden on border states to tackle the problem that is the responsibility of the federal government. Yeah. On June 10, 2022, Judge Drew Tipton of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas vacated the Mayorkas memo. The U.S. Court of Appeals to this circuit later refused to leave the policy on hold. Of course. But the Supreme Court allowed Tipton's decision to stay in place while the case wound its way through the court. So this is going to go to the Supreme Court. This should be good. We got a conservative majority, supposedly. We'll find out. Anyway, the showdown at the Supreme Court unfolded in a lively 2.5-hour debate in which justices were confronted with three major issues. Whether the Biden administration has the authority to alter immigration law, which is essentially deciding whether or not you selectively prosecute or enforce the law on such a grand scale that millions of people are allowed to break the law. It could be argued that you are actually unilaterally changing the law, not just practicing prosecutorial discretion, because prosecutorial discretion would be an exception. That wouldn't be the rule. Once it becomes the rule, you have actually unilaterally yourself decided to change the law without going through Congress. It's an interesting approach. We'll see if it works. Whether states have standing to challenge the federal government in court, absolutely they do. The federal court is not the states. The states and the federal government, while they're tied together as one country, the states themselves are separate entities. They absolutely have standing, especially if the federal government is doing, or through lack of action that they're supposed to be undertaking, causing damages, harm to that state. Of course they have standing to challenge the federal government in court, and whether a federal district court judge has the authority to set aside the policy. That doesn't matter because the Supreme Court does have the authority. And since they've taken up this case, they're going to have to make a decision as to whether or not the Biden administration can unilaterally decide to enforce none of these laws on millions of people. It appeared that the court's block of 6 conservative justices, I'm not sure how conservative they actually are, Roe v. Wade aside, were united in their support for the state's right to sue the federal government and in their skepticism of the Biden administration's unilateral alteration of immigration policy. Correct. So look, prosecutorial discretion is meant to be applied selectively and exceptionally, meaning it's not something that you're supposed to apply a blanket way to millions and millions of people, because the laws themselves apply to hundreds of millions of people, everybody, the entire world, in fact. So if you were unilaterally deciding not to enforce this law for millions of people, you have effectively changed the law without congressional approval. Only the Congress can pass new laws, not the government, not the Biden administration, the federal government, the head of the federal government, the executive branch, the president himself. If he's allowed to do that, well, he's nothing more than a tyrant, which of course he is. We all know that Biden is, well, he's a puppet. A tyrant nonetheless, tyrant puppet. The administration proceeded from the assumption that it has the discretion to dictate policy. It does not. Only in individual and exceptional cases, particularly in the face of what it termed congressional inaction in regards to funding to deal with 11 million illegal aliens. It ain't 11 million. They were saying it was 11 million when I was a kid. Back in the 1960s, they were saying it was 11 million. It's more like 40 million. Get the fuck out of here. Now, about that number, Democrats have been clinging to the 11 million illegal immigrants figure since at least the Obama administration. Whoa, they've been clinging to it since like 1965. What the fuck are you talking about? While that number may have dipped due to the Trump administration's solid border enforcement policies and COVID, no, it didn't dip. It did not dip. There's no way, and by the way, you're not counting the people that were born here from these illegal aliens who became legal Americans. And by the way, those anchor babies, they influence who gets elected. They influence the politics of this country. Don't kid yourself. There's no way that there are currently that few illegals in the country. Agreed. Nearly 5 million have slipped in just since Biden took office. And the real number of the country could be more than 20 million. Could be? Trust me, that's a low estimation. So if the Biden administration has not established an open border and let so many illegals into the country, the federal government might have the resources necessary to do its job and protect citizens from the criminal aliens. Isn't that interesting? The Biden administration is trying to claim that, well, Congress hasn't given us the resources to deal with the problem. That's why we got to allow all these illegal aliens in, because we don't have the resources to keep them out. Even though you're purposely choosing to remain inactive and allow them in, which creates the very problem that you say you can't now afford to address. How about putting up a wall, bitch? No, I'm going to spend millions of dollars every day not to build the wall, says Biden. Yeah. So you don't take the steps to prevent the problem before it happens, and then the problem happens, and you claim you can't stop the problem because you don't have the funds. Oh, wow. Interesting. So the story goes on to say, Chief Justice John Roberts brought home the point that the White House doesn't get to reset policy because it cannot meet its demands. Yeah, precisely. By the way, didn't Biden promise to forgive hundreds of billions of dollars in student loan debt, which he's not going to do, by the way. That's been put on hold. That was never going to happen to begin with, okay? That was just a promise he made right before the elections to, get some useful idiot, moron university students or people who owed student loan debts to vote for him. That's all. Or vote Democrat, I should say. It's our job to say what the law is, not whether or not it can be possibly implemented or whether there are difficulties there. Yeah. He's trying to claim that there's not enough funding, and that's why he's choosing to apply prosecutorial discretion and not prosecute these people. Meanwhile, he's spending millions, billions, in fact, dollars to ship them around the country. Well, if you can spend that money to ship them to Texas or other red states, can't you spend the money to ship them out south of the border? And I don't think we should change that responsibility just because Congress and the executive can't agree on something that's possible to address the problem. Just build a wall. Practice preventive maintenance so that it doesn't reach the point where you have to spend tens of billions of more dollars to get them out of the country. I don't think we should let them off the hook. I don't either. But, I'm not a commie pinko socialist whose whole life is spent trying to dodge responsibility or let people off the hook who believe in my ideology also off the hook. Roberts and Justice Samuel Alito also took issue with the position of the Biden administration that federal judges lacked authority to block new guidelines. As they do have authority, especially when it comes to federal laws. Roberts pointed out that the courts have had this power for decades. Yeah, it's a judge's job, depending on the case that he's reviewing, to decide whether or not this is legal or illegal. If a law is justified or not, if it jives with the Constitution or not. Is this law that was passed actually legal or is it illegal? Alito noted that the federal government was showing special hostility toward the states in this matter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, certain states. Border states. Border states that are against the message, the new normal. Yeah, they love Texas. They love California, though. Yeah, they have no problem with California, though. And Nancy Pelosi and any other politician from that state, because, I mean, are there any Republican politicians in California? Not too many. The case is due to be decided in June 2023, and the Biden administration may have signaled with some enforcement announcement that it knows defeat is coming. Yeah, they're going to lose. Wouldn't it be great if the Supreme Court actually, finally, definitively decided that you cannot apply prosecutorial discretion unilaterally, that you're not allowed to suspend enforcement of the law indefinitely, that you can't just apply it to millions of people, which is an effective nullifying of said law, and you're actually passing your own laws. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I mean, let's be honest. I personally don't have much faith in the Supreme Court. I mean, they still haven't made any kind of definitive ruling about gun ownership. You've still got places like New York limiting people's ability to own guns. When is the Supreme Court going to come to a definitive decision that says that every American, no matter where they live, whatever state, whatever city, is allowed to own whatever fucking gun they want, fully automatic, semi-automatic? They want to own a fucking cannon. They can own a cannon. By the way, they can actually legally own a cannon. So when is that going to happen? Anytime soon? So that's it. There you go. So some possible good news, some reason for hope, which I don't cling to, but maybe some of you out there do. I'm not very hopeful, to be honest. The court, especially this supposed conservative majority court, they seem to take half measures. They recently made a decision on guns that could have overturned New York's draconian gun laws, where they put limitations on who could own guns and such. But they don't seem to go all the way. They seem to take half measures. And when it comes to Roe v. Wade, they didn't proclaim that killing babies needed to be banned. That's the decision they really should have made. No, they said, it's up to the states. Meanwhile, they're telling the states that you got to allow gay marriage, even though marriage is between a man and a woman. But we're going to redefine it unilaterally until every fucking state you have to allow gay people to get married. Yet we're not going to go all the way when it comes to guns and the border and abortion. So, again, I don't have a lot of faith. Let me know what you think. Do you think that the Supreme Court is going to side with the people, with the Constitution, and get rid of this prosecutorial discretion bullshit? There's really just a cover that allows the president to change, to modify, to enact his own laws? Let me know what you think in the comments section. And please like and subscribe to my BitChute channel if you have not already. bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. That's bitchute.com/The Realist Philosopher. Go check it out.